Good evening, Night Wanderers. Welcome back to the Midnight Frequency. Tonight's story comes from a place where time is supposed to be absolute, where protocol is everything, where nothing is left to chance. Our guest tonight is former Sergeant David Morrison, a career soldier with 12 years of service. He stood watch in conflict zones, in freezing mountains, in desert heat. He knows what it means to stay alert when exhaustion weighs on you like armor. But nothing in his training prepared him for what happened during a routine night watch at a remote communications outpost. David's story isn't about enemy soldiers or combat. It's about something far more disorienting. What happens when time itself becomes unreliable? When the people around you aren't supposed to exist? When your shift never seems to end? In the military, you learn to trust your training, your equipment, and your fellow soldiers. But what do you trust when all three start to contradict each other? When the clock says one thing, your body says another, and the faces around you belong to no one you've ever met. This is a story about a soldier who stood his post, who followed orders, who did everything right, and who may still be standing there in an endless loop, waiting for a shift that will never end. David, welcome to the Midnight Frequency. Tell us, what happened on the perimeter?
They sent me to outpost Kilo 7 in March, middle of nowhere, northern Canada. Communications relay station, skeleton crew. 4 soldiers rotating 12-hour shifts. Our job was simple. Monitor the equipment, watch the perimeter, report anything unusual. Nothing ever happened there. That was the point. The base was small. One main building housing the communication equipment and sleeping quarters. A generator shed, a small armory. Everything surrounded by a chain-link fence with a perimeter of about 200 meters. Beyond that, forest. Dense, dark, endless forest. I drew night watch. 1900 hours to 0700 hours. 12 hours of walking the perimeter, checking the fence line, monitoring the access road. Standard stuff. My team was tight. Lieutenant Chen, Corporal Hayes, Private Davila. We'd been together for 8 months. We knew each other's rhythms. Chen liked his coffee black and his reports punctual. Hayes hummed when he was nervous. Davila talked too much, but had the sharpest eyes I'd ever seen. On March 17th, I started my shift as usual. Chen briefed me before heading to his bunk. Quiet day, equipment's running smooth. Weather report says possible snow after midnight. Stay warm out there, Morrison. Yes, sir. Hayes and Davila were already asleep. The main building was quiet, except for the hum of equipment and the wind outside. I geared up. Jacket, gloves, radio, flashlight, sidearm. Checked my watch. 1900 hours exactly. Stepped outside into the cold. The first 2 hours were routine. I walked the perimeter clockwise, checking fence integrity, scanning the tree line with my flashlight. The beam cut through darkness, but never reached far enough to see anything meaningful. Just trees, shadows, more trees. At 2100 hours, I radioed in. Morrison checking in. Perimeter secure. No contacts. Static, then Chen's sleepy voice. Copy that. Stay alert. I continued walking. My breath created clouds in the frigid air. Snow was starting to fall, light flurries that caught in my flashlight beam like static on a screen. That's when I saw him, a figure, standing just outside the fence, about 50 meters ahead on my route. I stopped, brought up my flashlight. The beam caught him fully, a man in a military uniform. Our uniform, but I didn't recognize him. Hey, I called out. Identify yourself. He didn't move, just stood there, facing the fence, facing me, I approached carefully, hand on my sidearm. This is a restricted area. Identify yourself immediately. As I got closer, details emerged. He was young, maybe mid-20s. His uniform was correct, but wrong. The insignia was outdated, like something from the 1980s. His face was pale, expression blank. "Soldier, I need you to..." He turned and walked into the forest. Not quickly, just turned and walked. Disappeared into the trees like he'd never been there. I stood at the fence, heart pounding. Keyed my radio. "Chen, this is Morrison. Possible contact on the northwest perimeter. Single individual, military uniform, walked into the forest, requesting backup." Silence. "Chen, do you copy?" More silence. Then static. Then, "Morrison, you just checked in. What's wrong?" "I just reported a contact. Did you not?" "You checked in at 2100 hours. Said everything was secure. It's 2103 now." I looked at my watch. 2103. That couldn't be right. I'd seen the figure called out, approached the fence. That had to have taken at least 10 minutes. "Chen, something's not right out here. I need someone to check the dash." "Morrison, you sound stressed. Are you okay? Do you need to come in?" No, I'm fine. Continuing patrol. I didn't tell him about the time. Didn't tell him I'd lost minutes. In the military, you don't report things you can't explain. You sound unstable. You get pulled from duty. I continued walking. Checked my watch obsessively. 2115. 2127. 2134. Time was moving normally now. At 2200 hours, I saw her. A woman, standing inside the perimeter. Between me and the main building. This time I didn't hesitate. Drew my weapon. "Stop! Hands where I can see them." She turned slowly. Also in military uniform. Also wrong. Her uniform was even older. 1960s maybe. Vietnam era. Her face was young, but her eyes looked ancient. "Who are you?" My voice was steady despite my racing heart. "How did you get inside the perimeter?" She opened her mouth. I expected her to speak. Instead, she pointed. Behind me. I spun around. 3 more figures. All in military uniforms from different eras, all standing perfectly still. All watching me. "Morrison to Chen." Multiple contacts inside the perimeter. I repeat, multiple dash. Static. "Chen. Hayes. Davila. Anyone respond?" Nothing. The radio was dead, or I was broadcasting to no one. I backed toward the main building, weapon raised, trying to keep all the figures in sight. But when I looked at where the woman had been standing, she was gone. They were all gone. I ran to the main building, burst through the door. "Chen, we have a breach." The common area was empty. I rushed to the sleeping quarters. Empty. Not just empty. The bunks were made, like no one had been using them. "Hayes! Davila!" My voice echoed in the empty building. I checked every room. The equipment room, the bathroom, the storage closet. No one. I was completely alone. I checked my watch. 2245 hours. That wasn't possible. I just checked in at 2200. Everything that happened, seeing the figures, running to the building, searching the rooms, couldn't have taken 45 minutes. Unless I was losing time. Big chunks of it. Blacking out while still moving. I sat at the comm desk, trying to steady my breathing. The equipment was running, screens showing normal readings. Everything was operational. But the building felt wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. The silence was broken by footsteps. Outside. On the gravel. I grabbed my weapon and moved to the window. Looked out. A patrol. 4 soldiers walking the perimeter in formation. But not Chen, Hayes, and Davila. Different soldiers. Uniforms from different eras, moving in perfect synchronization. And as I watched, I realized something that made my blood run cold. One of them was me. Same height, same build, same jacket. Walking the perimeter like I'd been doing all night. I watched myself walk past the window, watched myself stop, turn, look directly at the building. At the window. At me. The other me raised his hand, pointed at his watch, then continued walking. I looked at my watch. 0100 hours. Number. That was impossible. I just looked, and it was 2245. That was 15 minutes ago. Maximum. Unless hours had passed, unless I'd been sitting here, staring at nothing, while time bled away around me. I tried the radio again. "This is Morrison. Anyone copy? Please respond." A voice crackled through, but it wasn't Chen. "Morrison, this is Command. What's your status?" I don't know. I'm at outpost Kilo 7. My team is missing. There are people here who shouldn't be here. I think I'm... Morrison, we don't have anyone assigned to outpost Kilo 7. My throat tightened. What? I've been here for 3 weeks. Sergeant David Morrison. Service number --. We know who you are, Morrison. But outpost Kilo 7 was decommissioned in 1987. There's no one stationed there. There hasn't been for 38 years. The radio went silent. I looked around the room. Really looked. The equipment was old. Decades old. Covered in dust. The screens I thought were showing readings were dark. Dead. Had been dead for years. The bunks in the sleeping quarters. They weren't made. They were rotting. Fabric decomposed. Metal frames rusted. How had I not seen this? I ran outside. The perimeter fence was still standing, but overgrown with vegetation. The generator shed's door hung off its hinges. The access road was barely visible, reclaimed by forest. The patrol I'd seen was gone. But in the snow, fresh snow that had just started falling, there were footprints. Dozens of them. All circling the perimeter. All different boot sizes. All different depths, like they'd been made over years, decades, all compressed into this single moment. I checked my watch. 0330 hours. My shift was supposed to end at 700. I've been walking the perimeter for 3 hours since then, or maybe 3 years. I can't tell anymore. My watch keeps moving, but the sky stays dark. The snow keeps falling, but never accumulates. The footprints circle endlessly, mine joining all the others who walked this perimeter before me. Sometimes I see them, the other soldiers, different eras, different wars, all assigned to the same post, all walking the same route, all trapped in the same loop. Sometimes I see Lieutenant Chen. He looks through me like I'm not there, like I'm one of the ghosts. Maybe I am. I've tried to leave. The access road should lead out. But every time I walk down it, I end up back at the main building. The perimeter is a circle, and I'm stuck on its edge. My watch says it's 1900 hours. Time to start my shift. Chen's voice crackles through my radio. "Morrison, you ready for watch?" "Yes, sir." "Stay alert out there." I step outside. The forest is dark. The fence stretches ahead of me. I begin my patrol. Somewhere in the distance, I see a figure, military uniform, standing just outside the fence. He looks familiar. I think it might be me. And my shift has just begun.
David Morrison was reported missing in March 2025. Search teams found outpost Kilo 7 exactly as he described. Decommissioned decades ago, equipment dead, buildings decaying. There was no recent activity, no footprints, no sign anyone had been there in years. But his service record shows he checked in for duty on March 17th. His lieutenant confirms briefing him at 1900 hours. His teammates remember him starting his patrol. The official report says David deserted his post, walked off into the forest. But David's final radio transmission, the one where he called command and they told him the base didn't exist, that transmission was logged, time-stamped, real. Here's what haunts me about David's story. What if he's still there, still walking that perimeter, still checking his watch, watching time move in impossible ways, seeing soldiers from wars that ended before he was born? What if every military outpost that's ever been abandoned still has someone standing watch, trapped in a loop, doing their duty for eternity, unable to leave because their shift never ends? Time is supposed to be linear, past, present, future. But what if, in certain places, it loops? What if the perimeter David walked was walked by hundreds before him, and hundreds will walk it after, all in the same eternal moment? David's last known words on the recording: "My shift has just begun." Present tense, not past. Not my shift began, but has just begun. As if he's speaking from an endless now. To our listeners, if you've ever felt stuck in a moment that won't end, if you've ever lost time you can't account for, if you've ever seen yourself from the outside, you understand what David experienced. The horror isn't being trapped. It's not knowing you're trapped until it's too late. This has been the Midnight Frequency. Somewhere right now, David Morrison is checking his watch, starting his patrol, walking a perimeter that has no beginning and no end, and his shift will never be over. Until next time, stay present, stay grounded, and remember, some duties last forever.